Captain America is a symbol of all that's wrong with American exceptionalism, and his rogues gallery proves it. From the doughy, shape-shifting Doughboy cooked up by a Nazi scientist to the hate-fueled clone of Hitler himself, Hate Monger, Cap's villains are as bizarre as they are telling. Even the Red Skull's own daughter, Sin, embodies a twisted reflection of America's ideals, leading her own team of terrorists against the star-spangled hero. These enemies, along with the jingoistic super patriot, expose the dark underbelly of patriotism and the dangers of blind nationalism. Zooming in on the 10th spot, we have the one and only Doughboy, a villain so absurd he'd be comical if he weren't so dangerous. Imagine the Pillsbury Doughboy, but instead of delicious pastries, he's serving up a heaping helping of pain. This pliable pugilist was brought to life by Arnim Zola, a name that should send shivers down any Marvel fan's spine. Doughboy is the ultimate contortionist, able to stretch his body into any shape imaginable, making him a slippery opponent. He might look soft and cuddly, but this guy's a heavyweight who can fly, making him a surprisingly formidable, albeit incredibly strange, adversary for the star-spangled hero. His existence is a testament to the sheer weirdness that lurks within Captain America's world. Sliding into the 9th spot is AmeriCop, a villain who embodies the terrifying consequences of unchecked authority. This isn't your friendly neighborhood police officer. AmeriCop is a brutal vigilante who operates far outside the bounds of the law he once swore to uphold. He's judge, jury, and executioner rolled into one, dispensing his own twisted brand of justice with extreme prejudice. AmeriCop serves as a chilling cautionary tale, a dark mirror image of Captain America himself, demonstrating how easily the pursuit of justice can devolve into something monstrous. His presence in Cap's rogues gallery highlights the dangers of power without accountability and the fine line between hero and tyrant. Sinking his teeth into the 8th spot is the chilling Baron Blood, a vampire villain with a pedigree as old as the war itself. Forget the sparkling vampires of recent fiction. Baron Blood is a classic bloodsucker, straight out of a gothic horror novel, complete with superhuman strength, speed, and an insatiable thirst for the life force of the living. But what sets him apart from other creatures of the night is his deep connection to Captain America's World War II history. He's a relic of that era, a literal blood-soaked reminder of Cap's past battles. First appearing in Invaders #7, Baron Blood clashed with Cap and his wartime allies, the Invaders, cementing his place in the Captain America mythos. Adding another layer of intrigue is his familial connection to the British hero, Union Jack, who is, in a shocking twist, Baron Blood's own brother. This familial connection adds a whole other dimension of tragedy and conflict to an already captivating villain. At number 7, prepare to face the chilling embodiment of hatred itself, the Hate Monger. This villain is not just a symbol of intolerance. He's a literal clone of Adolf Hitler, genetically engineered by the nefarious Arnim Zola to spread his toxic ideology. Hate Monger is a weaponized version of bigotry, capable of manipulating minds and inciting violence with his venomous rhetoric. He's a horrifying reminder of the real-world evils of the past, a living testament to the dangers of unchecked prejudice and the insidious power of hate speech. His very existence forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the responsibility of science and the ever-present threat of history repeating itself. Hate Monger serves as a stark warning that the seeds of hatred once sown can take root and blossom into something truly monstrous. Hissing his way into the 6th position is the serpentine supervillain, King Cobra. This isn't your average reptile enthusiast. King Cobra was once a brilliant scientist delving into the secrets of anti-venom. However, a fateful encounter with a radioactive cobra transformed him into a living weapon, granting him enhanced strength, incredible agility, and of course, venomous fangs that would make any snake charmer envious. He's a formidable foe, able to slither through tight space and strike with lightning speed. King Cobra is a recurring thorn in Captain America's side, often joining forces with other villains, proving that sometimes the most dangerous creatures are those that lurk in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. He embodies the classic trope of science gone awry, showing how a quest for knowledge can sometimes lead down a dangerous and very scaly path. Powering up at number 5 is the mechanically menacing Machinesmith, a villain who blurs the lines between man and machine. This technological terror isn't just a skilled engineer, he's a master of consciousness transfer, capable of shifting human minds into computers and downloading them into new, often robotic bodies. He's a walking, talking testament to the potential dangers of unchecked technological advancement, wielding his mastery of robotics and artificial intelligence to create deadly machines and androids. Machinesmith is a constant challenge challenge to Captain America, not just physically, but also philosophically, forcing Cap to grapple with the very definition of humanity in an increasingly digital age. His most infamous feat was transferring She-Hulk's consciousness, proving his abilities and his threat extend beyond Captain America. Machinesmith represents a chilling vision of a future where the human spirit could be reduced to mere data, a chilling concept Cap must battle. Cloaked in shadows at number 4 is the enigmatic Mother Knight, a villainess who embodies the very essence of mystery. Her past is a blank page, her powers a closely guarded secret, and her motives a riddle wrapped in an enigma. She's a master of manipulation, a whisper in the darkness, pulling strings from behind the scenes. What little we know about Mother Knight only adds to her mystique. She's a formidable opponent for Captain America, a mistress of espionage who can infiltrate the highest levels of power without leaving a trace. Her presence in Cap's world is a constant reminder that sometimes the greatest threats are the ones you never see coming, the ones that operate in the murky realm of secrets and lies. She is the unknown, the unseen, and that's what makes her so dangerous. Needling his way into the 3rd spot is the prickly Porcupine, a villain who's as dangerous as he is, well, spiky. This isn't your average woodland creature. Porcupine is encased in a high-tech battle suit, a walking arsenal covered in razor-sharp quills. But these aren't just for show. He can launch them as projectiles, turning himself into a living, breathing pincushion of pain. And if that's not enough, his suit can also emit debilitating sonic blasts, making him a formidable foe in close-quarters combat. Porcupine is a tough nut to crack, both literally and figuratively, a testament to the ingenuity and absurdity of Captain America's rogues gallery. He's a recurring antagonist, often lending his unique brand of prickly power to larger villainous schemes, proving that even the most seemingly ridiculous foes can pose a serious threat. Taking the penultimate spot at number 2 is Sin, a villain who embodies the legacy of hatred, as she is the daughter of Captain America's arch nemesis, the Red Skull. She's inherited her father's twisted ideology and burning animosity for everything Captain America stands for, making her a deeply personal and formidable foe. Sin is no mere carbon copy of her father. She's a skilled fighter and a cunning strategist in her own right, capable of leading her own terrifying team, the Sisters of Sin, on a crusade of chaos. She represents a dark reflection of Captain America's legacy, a chilling reminder that even the noblest ideals can be perverted and passed down through generations, transforming into something truly monstrous. Sin's existence is a constant battle for Cap, not just against her physical prowess, but against the very idea that his greatest enemy's hatred can live on, poisoning the future. Claiming the top spot as the most obscure Captain America villain you need to know is the flag-draped fanatic himself, Super Patriot. This jingoistic villain is a warped parody of everything Captain America represents, a dark reflection of patriotism twisted into something ugly and dangerous. He's a master of propaganda, a charismatic manipulator who uses the very symbols of American pride to incite violence and sow discord amongst the populace. Super Patriot is a chilling reminder that even the most noble ideals, like love of one's country, can be weaponized, turning into tools of division and hatred in the wrong hands. He embodies the dangers of unchecked nationalism and serves as a cautionary tale about the power of propaganda to manipulate and mislead, even to the point of participating in illegal acts such as the January 6th insurrection, making him a disturbingly relevant villain in today's world. Want to see even more videos like this one? Check out this video next. We're looking back at all of the oldest villains in Marvel history. We have found some obscure guys that we guarantee you never heard of before. What are you waiting for?
The friendly neighborhood web slinger has been swinging since 1962. It's hard to remember everyone he's swung at. Let's see if we can get those wheels turning, ladies and gentlemen. Clear any brain fog and you will soon learn that there were 3 villains referenced in this intro. The superiority complex this man has is almost laughable. The gentleman is his name, but he is literally anything but. His real name is Gustav, and he is the type that is considered a threat even in the underground. He also, and this is where the superiority complex comes in, he believes that he is part of a superior group and that most people in the world are simply wastes of space, and the only thing they provide to society is being cannon fodder. He is a villain, I'll give him that. His absolutely wild connection to Peter Parker, he was almost the guy that killed Peter's parents. He was trying to get Logan, but Peter's parents stepped in. In retaliation, the gentleman alerted another bad guy about the Parker members, and then that guy ended up being responsible for the parents. The gentleman did request for Peter's life to be spared so Peter could be a later challenge. It's messed up. He did learn about the accident that made Peter Spider-Man and even kind of protected the kid by ending anyone who knew Peter's identity. So he did good things in really twisted ways and bad things in twisted ways. If he does something, it's probably twisted. For all his superior thinking, he was just a regular human, no superpowers. His only power was financial power as he was rich. He did have a bodyguard named Pity with the ability to create darkness. This villain has 5 known appearances in the comics, but what would have been a major role in the Amazing Spider-Man films. I love those movies, and the cliffhanger they were left on, I think about it once a week and get upset. The gentleman appeared in the mid-credits scene in the first movie, and after the big fight in the second movie, he's presumably the one hinting at forming the Sinister Six in that franchise. I'm so mad we never got to see it. Fog literally slipped through our fingers. He does have a power. He can turn his body into green fog on command. He can make his body dense to an extent as well, like a ghost that can touch things and choke things. The villain is described as a slippery ghost of mist. He uses his powers to assist him in his line of work, that being a contract slayer. He actually started out as just a regular human that had a not so regular line of work, but when he was set to end a physicist, an explosion in the lab gave him his powers. He didn't work alone though. His partner in crime literally was Knight, but we will talk about him next. The duo was hired by Kingpin to take down the Arranger, and they did, and that's what brought Spider-Man into the mix. Spidey chased the criminals down and defeated them by knocking them out. That all happened in the Spectacular Spider-Man issue 165 to 167 in 1990. No one knew where they went for the longest time after this until 2004's Marvel Knights Spider-Man. They had a very small cameo in the scene where Venom is being introduced. After that, again, where are they? Moving on to the other half of the destructive duo, Knight, spelled like a medieval knight because that is what he was. The power he got from the lab explosion was the ability to turn himself into a knight, the medieval man of armor. The knight form is a very strong suit. It can resist most forms of harm, except for lots of electricity. That's what Spidey used to knock them out in that previously mentioned comic. Also, just so you know, the characters' real last names are Fog and Knight. This was always in the cards for them. In the comics, it's theorized that the characters turned into their last names because that was how they saw themselves. So one thing about Peter's story is that he's bullied. He gets bullied in high school, right? We all know that. What if I told you there was someone who got bullied even more? Not to make this the Pain Olympics, but Peter is losing to Charles Wiederman, later Molten Man. He became Molten Man when he attempted to create a vibranium skin suit that would protect soldiers from any impact. The guy cut corners though, which led to the vibranium in the lab to blow up and attach itself to Charles. Now Charles was coated in vibranium and has all the powers that vibranium does. Unfortunately, the suit and the lab had a bunch of chemicals in them, and Charles's mental stability is soon holding on by a thread. He goes around on a slaying spree to find former classmates that bullied him. He took out a few people and burned down Peter's apartment. He's nothing if not thorough. Eventually, Peter realized that vibranium, Molten Man himself, can be hardened under extreme pressure, so Peter trapped Molten Man in a pressurized chamber which caused Molten Man's body to harden and prevent him from moving. The good news is Charles volunteered to get tested on for a cure to metals wearing people. Happens more often than you think in Marvel, and he was cured, lived happily ever after. Big Wheel is the villain, and he drives a, you guessed it, big wheel. His last name is also Wheel, so we should have seen this coming. Jackson Wheel was a villain even in his everyday job. He was a businessman, specifically a corrupt one that embezzled money. He hired this other villain called Rocket Racer to steal the evidence of his crimes, but Racer withheld the documents and asked for more money. He told Wheel that his jet-powered skateboard was going to keep at Wheel's case until he paid him. Wheel decided to hire the Tinkerer to create a weapon for him to fight the skateboard. That weapon was the Big Wheel, a large monowheel equipped with armor and various weapons. The Big Wheel and Spider-Man fought for the first time when Spider-Man was fighting Racer, actually. Wheel was after Racer and chased him through traffic, flattening cars on the way. The Racer led Big Wheel to the water, and just before Racer was going to get crushed and pulled in, he was pulled out by Spider-Man and the wheel fell into the Hudson River. He survived and would go on to cause chaos for various other heroes, including Spider-Woman. In total, Big Wheel has just under 20 appearances. The name Draco, when I say that, you probably think of the blonde from the Harry Potter series, but that name also belongs to an interesting Spider-Man villain. Hugh Drake was a scientist, winning a Nobel Peace Prize for his his work in the field of biology. The man would turn out to be anything but peaceful though, and honestly was just the lizard in a different font. Drake's research project was combining iguana genes with humans, tested it out on himself, and became Draco the Dragon. He walked like a man but had the fire of a dragon as well as poisonous gas. He was huge and had these massive wings when there was this meteor shower, and that's when Draco first appeared, so it looked like he had flown down into space, also a play on the Draco constellation there. To top it off, he made such a grand entrance he declared he wanted to rule the Earth. Classic move. Spider-Man and Draco ended up fighting at the top of the Empire State Building, and when Draco fell off, he transformed into a little iguana and disappeared into a wall. That's it. This story was part of this thing Marvel Comics did in the 1970s, where they released a story on record instead of on the page, so it's no wonder he slipped away and we haven't seen him again. This guy makes me so sad. He was a villain at first, but he didn't want to be. Mindworm was born with his powers. They weren't good powers, so he was set up from the start. He had the ability to drain mental energy from people around him. His other powers were mental based too, like telepathy and mind wave blasts and illusions. He was also known to invade dreams, be a natural genius, and when he drains energy, he could do that to the point of death, but he didn't want to do that. Though he wasn't strong physically that much, he could absorb so much energy and make himself very strong, even strong enough to fight Spider-Man. The character has less than 10 appearances and has lived quite the heartbreaking life in those 10 appearances. When he was born, he didn't know how to control his powers. He was literally a baby, so he accidentally made himself an orphan. In the orphanage, people started calling him Mindworm. He aged out and moved to a neighborhood in New York where he could harmlessly feed off the residents. He was found by Spider-Man and the two fought each other. Spidey won, they fought again, and Spider-Man won again, but double won this time because Mindworm realized that he wanted to be a good guy. Unfortunately, Mindworm was taken advantage of by some goons and went to jail. He couldn't hold down a job after jail and became homeless and was eventually beaten on the street and passed before Spider-Man could help. It was really sad. R.I.P. Mindworm. Polestar, or Thomas Duffy, has had about 2 appearances, which means there really isn't much to tell here. He first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man 409 in 1996 and then died that same year in Spider-Man Unlimited 14. What did he do in that short time? Well, he was a player in the Great Game. Polestar, Rhino, and Joystick teamed up together to fight the friendly neighborhood web-slinger. Polestar wore a suit that generates a magnetic field, allowing the villain to attract and repel whatever he wants to fight with. It's also resistant to Peter's webbing. Of course, even 3 against 1, Spider-Man came out on top and Polestar went to jail. Eventually he got out but was shot in a different battle and perished. This fashion icon should be in the pages of Vogue, not forgotten. Belladonna, also known as Madame Belladonna to distinguish from another character with the same name, was an American in Europe. She opened a fashion design business with her sister and all was well, slaying the game, until this man came along and ruined everything. Roderick Kingsley, #NotMyRoderick, came along and stole the sisters' designs and took them to America to sell. Also, Kingsley later became the Hobgoblin, so he sucks literally across the board. Madame Belladonna was rightfully very angry about her stuff being stolen and put together a team of henchmen to track the Goblin down. The team found him and attacked, but Spider-Man swooped in to save the guy because he was just a defenseless human at this time after all. There were a series of fights until finally Belladonna and her henchmen were webbed up by the spider and left for the authorities. Belladonna only appears in 3 issues: Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man 43, 47, and 48. And we don't know where she is, if she's designing prison jumpsuits, I don't know. Other characters are now named Belladonna and have no correlation to her. Of what's been shown, Belladonna has no superpowers, but she is very good at chemistry and of course design. She has a gas gun that can render someone unconscious. She will also put this gas in perfume bottles for a more high fashion look. The gas and her name come from the belladonna plant. Sticks and Stones are the villains here. They had very different origins but are both super cool. So Sticks was originally homeless and not doing well, so when Stone's team of scientists showed up looking for homeless people to experiment on, Sticks was all for it since it paid well. It gave him way more than he bargained for though. His trial resulted in him becoming a living cancer. anything he touched would rot away. Stone has powers like that too, plus his genius scientific mind, and he has a bunch of weapons. The difference between Sticks and Stones is that Sticks rots organic matter and Stone rots inorganic matter, so together they are the worst. To make everything even more unsettling, Sticks can make his fingers longer, all the more easy to grab things to rot. The pair debuted in Amazing Spider-Man 309. They have fought not just Spider-Man, but also Deadpool. Deadpool is the choice to fight these guys, I think. The pair have about 10 appearances. Thanks so much for watching, y'all. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and make your mark on the comment section down below. Let me know your favorite Spider-Man villain. Mine is now Belladonna, but even the ones that get lots of spotlight count too.
Number 10. Deadpool. Deadpool has gone through phases where he was fully cured of his power set and even pretty once more in the comics, like back during Daniel Way's Deadpool run, looking completely normal but without his healing factor. But the most startling shift when it comes to Deadpool's appearance has to be between his on-screen adaptations. That's right, we're talking about the comparison between Deadpool's cinematic debut in the X-Men Origins Wolverine film and his own self-titled film franchise. Although oddly enough, both roles feature him played by Ryan Reynolds. The two adaptations could not be more different. Thankfully in Deadpool 2, Wade manages to fix Cable's temporal dial. Using this device to time travel, Wade is not only able to save Vanessa, who initially died at the beginning of that film, but is also able to clean up the timelines by killing the previous version of himself, who is also known as Weapon 11. It should also be noted that in X-Men Origins Wolverine, Deadpool appeared fully as a villain, as opposed to the lovable mess of an anti-hero we've come to know him as within his own film franchise. Number 9. Raquel. I never know how to say this name, but I'm pretty sure it's like Raquel. How do you say Skrull names? That's the question. For some reason, probably because she had been gone so long, Raquel, aka the Skrull Empress, aka Emperor Doric VIII / Hulkling / Teddy Altman's grandmother, was completely unrecognized when she returned. Raquel was revealed to be alive and well, and also sleuthing it up as she impersonated Tanault the Pursuer, an elite member of the Kree forces. And apparently Raquel had been impersonating Tanault so long she had in essence created her persona and basically was her. Raquel had actually been plotting and planning in secret, putting in place all the pieces to bring together the Kree and Skrull Empire, uniting them in an alliance in order to ensure her grandson was the one to rule over the now allied empire, as we saw in Empire. That's the name of the event, so not to be redundant. It was an empire, but it's spelled empire with a Y because it's a whole other thing. And yet when she was revealed in that event to be the one revealed as the Skrull pretending to be Tanault, many Marvel fans actually needed to crack open their comic history books and review just who exactly she was, with many people mistaking her for Veranke, the Skrull Queen. But yes, this is Raquel. She was believed to have died when the Skrull homeworld perished along with her daughter Princess Nell, as their world was devoured by Galactus. She made her first appearance in the Fantastic Four original series in issue 206 and was believed to have perished in issue 257. But she didn't, she was still alive, and then she came back years later and everyone went, who is that? What? Veranke? What? Not Veranke, two different people. Number 8. Kraven the Hunter. You might think you recognize Kraven, but do you really? After all, the current Kraven that you've seen turning up in the current Beyond storyline of the Amazing Spider-Man series is actually none other than Kraven's last son. Well, his last clone son, anyway. This clone of Kraven was given the name of Last Son after he hunted down all his other brothers, his other clone brothers, who had also been trained by Sergei Kravinoff, the Kraven himself. As such, this clone of Kraven was named his true heir, and since then has also taken up the mantle of Kraven the Hunter. So while he may look like Kraven, albeit a younger version of him, this Kraven the Hunter is not actually the original. So I guess this is a character that you would recognize, but in so doing you'd be wrong, which means I guess you didn't really recognize him then, did you? This version of Kraven made his first appearance in the current run of The Amazing Spider-Man, which started in 2018, first appearing back in issue 16 as the Last Son. Number 7. Xemnu. Xemnu made his first appearance in Journey into Mystery in issue number 62. We learned that Xemnu was actually a prisoner and a criminal who was retrieved and accidentally revived by a human and electrician named Joe Harper. Xemnu would go on to become become known as Zemnu the Living Hulk, and would also prove to be a powerful cosmic, psionic, and all-around bizarre enemy to the Hulk and the Hulk family in time. Initially, he clashed with the original superhero powerhouse team known as the Defenders. Zemnu in his first appearance has brownish or reddish fur, but currently has reappeared in the comics with white fur, making him look kind of like a space yeti. You may not recognize him because you forgot him, or because he's just so weird, or it could be just because of this change when it comes to, his overall fur color. But yeah. He's got different, I guess he dyed his fur? I don't know. What happened there? Number 6. Norman Osborn. Well, you might currently recognize Norman Osborn in terms of his appearance. When it comes to his actions and his alignment, you might not. And in modern comics, Norman has also gone through a couple dramatic redesigns and makeovers in recent history. At one point, Norman gets plastic surgery to completely change his facial appearance, reinventing himself as Mason Banks and becoming the head of Alchemex. There's even an unmasked point where we were all kind of like, wait, who's that? And then he's like, I changed my face, but it's me, Norman Osborn, aka also Mason Banks. He also has been the head of Hammer and his own Dark Avengers, and for a time posed as their version of Iron Man, tarnishing the mantle of Iron Patriot, and more recently, a depowered Norman bonded with the Carnage symbiote, allowing himself to use the Goblin Serum once more, but ultimately being driven insane by that whole experience and believing himself to actually be prime Carnage host and serial killer Cletus Cassidy. Now sane again, however, and seemingly purified by the Sin Eater, currently in the comics, Norman is on a path of redemption, having gained a new lease on life and being cured of his usual villainous intentions. Or so it would seem. I never trust Norman, but that's what's up currently. Number 5. Galactus. One villain who recently got a very mummy-inspired looking makeover was Galactus during his time in Thor's latest series as written by Donny Cates. Here in the first arc of the 2020 Thor series, referred to as Volume 6 overall of Thor, Thor takes on the immensely powerful cosmic entity known as the Black Winter. Because the Black Winter is so powerful, Thor is forced to team up with Galactus to defeat it. Unfortunately, he also learns that Galactus is actually kind of a herald for the Black Winter. FYI, that is just how powerful of a force the Black Winter is. He has Galactus as a herald. After devouring 5 planets to bolster his own power, Galactus has this power stripped from him by Thor upon this revelation. Thor leaves Galactus drained of the power cosmic, wrinkled, and de-armored, even taking Galactus's helmet as a trophy, using it as the entrance to his throne room. So while you might have recognized him previously, Galactus then got super upgraded and now is very mummified and also very dead. Oof. Number 4. Onslaught. Onslaught initially was a villain with a mysterious background. Despite the fact the powerful villain looked a ton like Magneto and seemed to pack a psionic powerhouse of abilities that echoed an evil Professor X, the character's true identity as really both of those mutants wouldn't be confirmed till after his initial appearance. When Onslaught appeared again, it was in a similar vein, and while the symbol of Onslaught might be similar, this time around when it came to the character's identity, they were even less recognizable, as it was explained that basically all the mutants of Krakoa were, in a way, Onslaught, and that Onslaught was able to exist through their constant resurrections. So while you might recognize the look of Onslaught when they returned, their true identity was even more of a mystery than the first time around. And their final form that we saw during X-Men The Onslaught Revelation was pretty wild as well, getting a bit of an update to match even the current character designs of what an amalgamated Charles and Eric would look like currently. I like that that version of Onslaught has like the black suit now, the tight black suit that Charles wears. It's a look. Number 3. One Below All. I think one of the biggest revelations of modern comics was learning that even a being as good as the One Above All, who is basically considered to be like Marvel God, has a dark side. The One Below All ended up being a major villain in the Immortal Hulk series, and we later learned that their power actually came from one of the most divine and good beings in the Marvel universe, the One Above All. The One Below All is like the Hulk for the One Above All. In other words, their darker and much more destructive other half. So while you might know the One Above All and you might know the One Below All, I bet you'd be surprised to learn that they were actually directly connected to one another. They can't exist without the other, especially given how different in appearance and alignment they both are. But this revelation was also super powerful and fitting for a series that was really all about forgiving and reconciling the darker side of the Hulk the Hulks, and ultimately of humanity and our own individual selves. After all, we all have like a little bit of a Hulk side to us. Number 2, Killmonger. If you go on far enough back, Eric Killmonger easily becomes one of Marvel's villains you would not soon recognize. And that goes both ways. Whether we're talking about more recent fans looking back in comic history to his first appearance in Jungle Action, volume number 2, or whether we're talking about his initial fans looking at his modern MCU adaptation and comic redesign, which obviously takes inspiration from the MCU version of Eric. Killmonger made his first appearance in the second volume of Jungle Action from the 1970s in issue number 6, and even from that front cover, he just looks like really different. Here, Eric does not sport any self-created bodily scars marking his kills, but instead comes with a lot of spiky accessories, including what appears to be a spike belt, which he uses as a weapon to fight against his foe and his rival, Black Panther. All the spikes. Now he's got scars, but back then he had spikes. Number 1, the leader. I doubt after all this time if the leader even really recognizes himself, considering what he looks like now. Following the events of Immortal Hulk, the leader is left no longer a supervillain, but just a guy. Throughout the course of the series, we saw the leader only grow more evil and more powerful, it seemed. He was eventually basically influenced or possessed by the one below all, the most powerful of all Hulk-related baddies, and possibly the baddest of the bad just in general. However, after the two beings were separated from one another, Stearns was left as just a man, returned to normal. The Hulk decided to forgive the leader, and he returned back to the Earth with all the other Hulks and Bruce Banner. It's been a long time, but Sam Stearns is no longer the leader, at least not currently in the comics. I mean, he could return to being the leader at some point. Instead, Samuel Stearns is just
kicking off the list at number 10, we have the 1000, aka Carl King. The 1000 made a brief but memorable appearance in the comics, beginning with Spider-Man Tangled Web number 1. Back in 2001. Carl's origin story is quite compelling, as he actually witnessed Peter Parker obtain his powers by being bitten by the radioactive spider. He's clearly upset and a tad jealous. The opening of the issue has him just staring out of a cafe window, just stewing in the fact that it should have been him instead of Peter Parker to get those powers, which, you know what, I understand, man. I say that every single time I watch a Marvel movie. So, making a terrifying entrance, he reveals himself as the 1000. So instead of getting the same powers as Peter, he actually turned into 1,000 spiders. No, I don't like that. I feel sick looking at this guy. The last page of his first issue really pulls you in. It's his skin suit, like it's his skin as a suit, just chilling on a coat hook, while he takes over Miss Peyton, even revealing that he ate her from the inside out. He's a bunch of spiders that take over your body. No wonder we didn't hear much about this guy. Yuck. Next, get out of here. And before we move on with our list, guys, if you haven't already, please toss us a like down below. It's a big help to us here at our secret underground bunker. Thank you so much. Okay, back to these crazy villains. And coming in at number 9, we have the Spot. Making his first appearance in Peter Parker the Spectacular Spider-Man issue 98, the Spot isn't exactly the coolest villain per se. I mean, he doesn't throw pumpkin bombs, he's not made of 1,000 spiders, but when Jonathan Owen was exposed to the spotted dimension during an experiment, his skin became white with black spots, and those spots acting as warps in space. Honestly, this character is super unique. In his second issue, you really see what he can do. He uses these portals to punch through space and hit his victims far away. He holds these portals like frisbees, and personally, I would love to see this guy fight Doctor Strange. The whole portal versus portal action alone would be mint. And they're both doctors. So why hasn't this happened yet? I don't know. Seeing Spider-Man use his portals to hit Thanos in Infinity War makes me think if the Spot was in a Spider-Man movie, it would be just hours of that. And honestly, that would be sweet. I'm here for it. I wish I was the Spot. Scratching your back would be so much easier. Instead of reaching and like trying to like pull your shoulders out, no thank you. Much better. Coming in at number 8, we have Swarm. Oh, you thought I was done with disgusting Swarm villains. No, think again. Fritz von Meyer made his debut in Champions issue 14 back in 1977. And as you can probably guess by his name, yes, he's made of a swarm of bees. Kind of like the 1000, except somehow worse. He's also a scientist. So, for sure worse. Definitely worse. He used stolen gold to pay for all of his projects. So he's a Nazi beekeeper who steals gold. Great. you're a villain. You did it. So it's no surprise we haven't heard much about him. I mean, what a weird character. One day he found a beehive that was not like any other. So Fritz made a device that hoped would reawaken these bees, which he thought were like the end result of a mutation with a nearby fallen meteorite. The bees woke up, but then they continued to attack and kill Fritz, the beekeeper Fritz. No, not him. And then his consciousness was spread out through all of those bees, and now you have the swarm. Literally the bee's knees. I don't care how tough you think you are, there's no chance you're going toe to toe with bees. There's no fight. If I was swinging around the city and a swarm of bees was robbing a bank, I didn't see that. I'm just gonna keep heading to Aunt May's. No worries. Headphones are going back in. Good luck. R.I.P. Good game. And coming in at number 7, we have Mindworm. In Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1, Issue 138, we were introduced to William Turner. No, not that William Turner, although I'm sure he'd be great. He's probably fine. I'm talking about the telepathic, tragic, minor Spider-Man villain, Mindworm. Born with limited telepathic powers, he was the cause of his parents' untimely death, and he suffered from it for quite a while. So he grew up in an orphanage and protected himself from bullies using his mind powers, thus donning the nickname Mindworm. He's extremely smart. He even looks smart too, with his giant brain head. He attacked Peter once by hijacking the minds of others to do the dirty work, so people just started attacking him randomly. What I like most about this villain is he tries not to be a villain, for the most part at least. He just feels this tremendous guilt after being born this way. I mean, it's not his fault. Number 6, Red Goblin. Green Goblin plus Carnage equals holy shit. Appearing in the Amazing Spider-Man 798, Norman Osborn stole the Carnage symbiote, and then after that, it was just a nightmare. So Norman used the symbiote to eject all of the nanites, but then that ended up creating this monster mash, becoming the Red Goblin. Put them both together, very scary. The rare weaknesses that the symbiotes do have went away once the two had merged, right? So if you think you can use sound or fire to take this guy out, it's your funeral, no way. Green Goblin was fine with those things, so now the Carnage side of Red Goblin isn't affected either. Even the bombs that he used are like these Carnage pumpkin bombs that will like bite you. It's all fused together and it's really intimidating. I'd love to see more of the Red Goblin, let's go. And number 5, Calypso. Making her first appearance in Amazing Spider-Man 209, Calypso is a voodoo priestess who also happens to be the lover of Kraven the Hunter. After gaining her powers from sacrificing her own sister, it's safe to say she took the villain route. So what started out as her being the significant other to Kraven the Hunter soon turned into Calypso taking over the mind of the Lizard and using him. Not cool. You can see this take shape beginning in the Torment 5-part storyline. And with rumors of Kraven the Hunter being casted in the next Spider-Man flick, who knows, maybe we'll get a little sneak peek at Calypso as well. Fingers crossed. Number 4, the Red Vulture. Okay, so we talked earlier about the Red Goblin, so we might as well throw another big red in the mix while we're here. The Red Vulture made his comic book debut in Amazing Spider-Man issue 592, and while some may see the Vulture as Adrian Toomes, the Red Vulture is actually James Natal. So James started off working for the mob, of course, and then after the workload kept increasing and increasing, he requested some help. So his superiors figured it would be a great time to use him as his test subject to make a new super bad. Using the same technology that had created the Fly and the Scorpion, but with a little hint of, memory loss thrown in there, Spider-Man found this monstrosity during a patrol, and he saw him eating a guy. He has acid spit, so it's not too hard to eat a guy. Even Peter gets some acid in his eyes. I mean, where's an emergency eye wash station when you need it? And coming in at number 3, Carry-On. AKA Miles Warren made his comic book debut back in Peter Parker's Spectacular Spider-Man issue 25. His powers are pretty amazing. I mean, I would love to see more of this guy. Everything he touches turns to dust. It turns to dust, red dust. It's very bad. He's creepy looking. I mean, he also carries this little pouch side carry bag, so he looks creepy, but he also looks like he's running errands. So, I don't know. He's taking lives, but he's also late for work. He's a weird looking guy. The initial Carry-On was actually a clone of the Jackal, but the virus had made it outlive that body. So now we're left with this. Super strength, telepathy, levitation, super speed. It's pretty hard to avoid the touch of Carry-On, especially when he's motoring. This villain didn't last too long back in the late 70s, but he's interesting enough to check out. So go do that. And number 2, Morbius. We have to include Michael Morbius, the living vampire. I mean, after all, Jared Leto is set to take on the bloodthirsty mantle with a sneaky little peek at Michael Keaton's Vulture at the end of the Morbius trailer that we got earlier this awful year. A lot of people are wondering who this guy is now. Making his debut in Amazing Spider-Man 101, Michael Morbius was of course a scientist, and actually a Nobel Prize winning biochemist. Having a debilitating blood disease plus experimenting with bats to find a solution, you already know what's about to go down. The best part of his origin story is that when he meets Spider-Man for the first time, this just happens to be the time where Spider-Man is donning the 4 extra arms, and it's pretty entertaining. So Morbius, in his thirst for blood, is like, oh, that dude's got 6 arms, that's like a lot of blood. Oh boy, that would be pretty yummy. So Morbius attacks and does a pretty decent job. In comes Curtis Connors to help out. Or rather, turn into the lizard and make Spider-Man's day go from bad to worse. I'm pretty pumped to see Jared Leto take flight with Morbius. I mean, I'm also pretty sure Jared Leto's already a vampire to begin with, so I'm sure his method acting will really come in handy. And closing off the list, coming in at number 1, we have Tombstone, a notable villain in the Spider-Man PS4 storyline, and making his debut in the late 80s in Web of Spider-Man 36. Tombstone, aka Lonnie Lincoln, grew up bullied due to his physicality. He was born albino and much taller and stronger than others, so naturally he himself also became a bully too. See how it works? Don't bully people. There's an idea. Down the road, he embraced it and became one of the biggest, baddest hitmen out there, taking out the trash for Kingpin himself. Weighing in at almost 500 pounds and towering at the height of 6'7", Lonnie is strong enough to lift 6 tons. So if you're a fan of the Spider-Man game, you'll agree he's one of the hardest villains in that entire storyline, and for good reason.
You got some stones, Rick. Let's see if they break.
Number 10, Super Skrull. Kl'rt might be recognizable when it comes to his character design, which admittedly has not changed that much over the years, but when it comes to his alignment, you might be somewhat surprised to learn where he is now, from where he started. Super Skrull Kl'rt made his first appearance in Fantastic Four issue 18. Once again, the Skrulls attempted to invade Earth and planned on defeating the FF, this time with their secret weapon, the Super Skrull, who seemed to possess all of the Fantastic Four's powers. Unfortunately, Mr. Fantastic and the team realized that these powers were likely not Super Skrull's own, and suspected in fact that they were delivered to him from the Skrull homeworld. They used a device to jam the signal that was giving Kl'rt his powers, defeating him. Currently in the comics, Kl'rt serves Emperor Hulkling and was for a time one of his trusted advisors. Kl'rt, however, was also the one who killed Hulkling's foster mother. Recently in Empire Aftermath, Kl'rt felt so awful about his past that he actually offered his life to the Emperor. Hulkling refused to accept it though, instead preferring to make Kl'rt work in the area of diplomacy so that he might make amends for all the lives that he had taken in times of war. He was like, no. Instead, you gotta save lives, and hopefully that'll make up for it. You can't just die on me, Kl'rt. Number 9, Hell's Bells. Hell's Bells was a group of villains who were all female mutants. The team was originally assembled by Cyber, who trained all of its members and consisted of Shrew, Briquette, Flame, Tremolo, and Vague. When Shrew betrayed them by testifying against them in order to get immunity for herself, the Hell's Bells banded together in an attempt to get revenge on her for betraying them. Eventually, they would be successfully taken into custody by X-Factor. Following the events of M-Day and Decimation, all team members save Briquette found themselves completely depowered. They still have operated as criminals in the comics, appearing in the Children of Adam series most recently, but they were a lot less scary because they had to rely on equipment and gadgets in place of, their own powers. Even without their powers, the team mainly stuck together though, minus Briquette and obviously Shrew. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want even more lists about Marvel villains you might not recognize or something in that realm, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8, Silver Samurai. While Silver Samurai looks much the same in the comics as he always has, not every iteration of him has been so recognizable. We've seen him turn up here and there on Krakoa recently. He seems to enjoy watching and participating in the friendly single combat matches in the Quarry, and in modern comics, he's recognizable. But how about in modern film? Well, Silver Samurai might not be a main character in Fox's mutant universe, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't exist. He actually made an appearance in the 2013 film The Wolverine. But although here he also seemingly looked the same, when it came to his armor at least, he couldn't be further from his comic book counterpart in actuality. That's because Silver Samurai here was an adamantium robot whom Wolverine had to battle against. Yeah, they made Kennyukio Harada robot armor. He was at least piloted by Ikiro Yoshida, who is obviously that film's version of Ken's own father in the comics. So, at least there was a little bit of a thing, but still, he wasn't even a person. He was just robot armor. Like, rude. Ken is a whole person, okay? It's not just armor. Number 7, Forearm. Forearm is Michael McCain. Originally, Michael was part of Strife's Mutant Liberation Front. He was one of the founding members, but would end up defeated by those that fought against him. Despite generally being on the side of the villains, Forearm was also welcomed onto the mutant island nation of Krakoa, where he could have a fresh start for himself. He accepted the offer and would end up joining Sword and being seen as a member of Magic's Dark Riders, who I think should get their own book. However, on Krakoa, he looks a bit different from his initial appearance, where he decidedly was showing a lot more forearm and had much less shirt. Forearm's mutant power is that he has 4 arms. Get it? Get it? His 4 arms. And now he wears shirts. Good for you, Forearm. Good for you. Although you can also not wear a shirt. You can not wear a shirt if you don't want to wear a shirt. Like, I'm not going to pressure anyone to wear shirts if they don't want to, or vice versa. I'm not going to pressure anyone to like not wear a shirt if they're like, I like my shirt, let me keep my shirt. But I do like his new design as well. His new outfit is pretty cool. Number 6, Thanos. Thanos might look very similar to his initial appearance in the comics, and also looks quite similar on the big screen, but he's seen a pretty big change when it comes to what he's up to recently. In the comics, that is. In the MCU, he's mainly dead and gone, but there is a chance perhaps that he could return. Who knows? Not only have we now met Star Fox or Eros in the MCU, but in the comics, Thanos has become the new Prime Eternal, and as such, their new leader. That's right, this guy just went from being the baddest supervillain around to leader of a superhero team. Although we'll have to see where the Eternals' alignment is in the comics following the events of Avengers vs. X-Men vs. Eternals War, because that's probably gonna be crazy. Also, I don't even know what the Eternals is really doing in that mix, but I'm here for it. I'm here to check that out. Number 5, Rhino. Rhino was given a completely new look for his appearance in the second Amazing Spider-Man film. Honestly, Rhino is a hard villain to do in live action, I feel like, so I'm not surprised with the direction that they went with, but also, what a weird direction to go in for that character, considering what they're actually supposed to be like in the comics. In the comics, Rhino is Alexei Sistovich, who is genetically altered and then bonded to a suit of armor that increases his strength and durability. Basically, he's given like a mechanical rhino skin, but like the skin. The armor was modeled after a rhinoceros, as they are known in nature for being relentless when it comes to their assault and extremely hard to defeat due to their tough hide. Rhino, however, has never been known for being very smart, which makes him fairly easy to defeat usually, which seems to be the same idea when it came to his cinematic counterpart. However, the whole design for this character was definitely different than the comic book counterpart, whose armor was much less mech-like or robotic and is more like just the tough hide of a rhino. Really, he kind of just looks like a guy in a rhino suit in the comics. Also, Alexei is just super jacked in the comics, and his cinematic counterpart didn't seem so jacked. He was just like a guy in a suit. Of course, Alexei does get a lot of his jackedness as well from his whole rhino thing, but he also, I think, was jacked still to begin with. I'm pretty sure. He's just more jacked. Number 4, Legion. Legion has a new look in X-Men Onslaught Revelation. This one-shot is kind of like the bookend for the Way of X limited series if you were checking that out, which I personally haven't read all of, but I will say the parts of it that I have read have been strictly excellent, so I would recommend Way of X to anyone that's interested. If you like the idea of pondering the why in life and beliefs, and you enjoy philosophical prose, this is really a great series for you. In Onslaught Revelation, Nightcrawler, Legion, Pixie, Fury, and Dust come together to try and defeat the resurrected Onslaught, who has been slowly returning with each resurrection, residing as pieces in the minds of all mutants. In order to help in the fight against Onslaught, Legion makes his mind a safe space for all mutants to come through, in essence also fully connecting with Krakoa and kind of becoming a sort of hive mind if necessary. As such, he gets a redesign, though he still gets to keep the wild shape of his hair that we've all come to recognize so well, and that I've really come to love. Legion, moving forward after the defeat of Onslaught, will also keep this look as he becomes the newly created religion's church. That's right, Legion is the church. He's the building. In essence, people can come into his mind to worship, find community, and seek sanctuary. It's like a nice safe space for people to come and just like be and feel good. It's awesome. I love that Legion is the church. I just think that's great. Number 3, Donald Blake. Donald Blake ended up becoming a villain recently in the comics, which is a pretty big change for a guy who was once also the mighty hero Thor. Donald Blake used to be Thor's human form, but in reality was kind of his own person, or he kind of ended up becoming his own person. He was created by Odin to be a human host for Thor, but after Thor died at the hands of the serpent, Blake became separated from Thor and became his own separate entity. Eventually, he would end up going to the Enchantress for help, only for her to use him to make her own villainous creature referred to as the Keep. Basically, she killed Donald Blake and then used his blood to make the Keep, and we haven't seen the Keep in a while, but I'm sure he's out there somewhere. After Amora and the Keep were defeated by Thor, Blake was laid to rest, living on as a disembodied head in a dream world that was crafted for him. Well, living on as a person in the dream world, but he was just a disembodied head. But he was asleep, so he was dreaming. Eventually, though, Blake came to realize that this world wasn't real, and awoke from his dream, seeking revenge on all Thors across the multiverse for what had happened to him. And don't worry, he wasn't just a head then. He had a body then. He would end up being defeated by 616 Thor in the end, and then made into the God of Lies, as per Thor's brother Loki's suggestion. Thor was like, what do we do with this guy? We shouldn't kill this guy. He's Donald Blake. Loki's like, nah, let's make him the God of Lies. Seems to fit considering everything Donald Blake has been through. Number 2, Taskmaster. Taskmaster is Anthony Masters and is known for being an unstoppable foe. He can master pretty much any skill he can observe. Some would say he's a taskmaster, which makes him a deadly opponent. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we were also introduced to Taskmaster, but the character was changed somewhat for the film in which they were introduced, Black Widow. Instead, Antonia Dreykov, the daughter of General Dreykov, the man behind the Red Room, was Taskmaster. When Black Widow left the Red Room and became an Avenger, she believed she had killed Dreykov, sadly also having to kill his daughter, who basically led them to their target. She was a casualty of the explosion, intended to kill Dreykov himself. Instead, Antonia was actually badly injured and ended up surviving, but her face was permanently scarred. She then became Dreykov's weapon, having studied the moves of the Avengers and having their fighting styles basically uploaded into her brain, allowing her to mimic all their various moves and making her a hard opponent for Black Widow to defeat. Quite different from the comic book version, but still really cool and badass as an alternate version of the character, I think. Number 1, Cyber. Cyber has come a long way when it comes to his look in the comics. Granted, Cyber has also come back a lot of times, so I guess it kind of makes sense that he would look different. He made his first appearance in Marvel Comics Presents in issue 85 in the 90s, where he was introduced to us as a cyborg-appearing Wolverine villain who was hired by General Koi, another enemy of Logan's. Back then, he was just a smile and a coat with a hat on. Currently, however, his design is much different, and he doesn't even go by the name Cyber anymore, instead being known as Hornet in the comics in his newest body. Who are some villains that you hardly recognize anymore?
There are so many crazy characters in Marvel Comics that some just get kind of forgotten sometimes, especially when it comes to villains, because those guys can get defeated and either sent to the afterlife or locked up in prison, and we never have to think about them again. For example, we've got Armless Tiger Man. Gustav Hertz worked in a mechanical laboratory in Munich, Germany during the 1940s. Now, unfortunately for Hertz, one day his arms got caught in a machine and had to be amputated. While this is a horrible thing to happen to anybody, Gustav did survive the experience, and he was later given reading material on how to operate day to day without arms, instead using his mouth and feet to complete daily tasks. Turns out that he was really good at this. Hearst developed ridiculous skill in using his teeth and feet. He even took things a couple steps further. He sharpened his teeth into fangs so that he could bite people, and he even developed above average levels of strength and dexterity in his jaw, legs, and toes, allowing him to bend steel with his mouth, kick really hard, and throw daggers with his toes. He ended up proving how capable he was as a World War II enemy of the hero Angel and Wakanda, where he was completely destroyed by that era's Black Panther. What was really surprising was when he reappeared in Incredible Hercules number 129 to 131 in 2009. He was among a group of individuals that were the Greek god Pluto's jury of the undead, and they together put Zeus on trial and subdued Hercules himself. Past that though, Armless Tiger Man has appeared one more time in Ziggy Pig's Silly Seal Comics Volume 2 number 1 in 2019, and let's be honest, no one really read that. Now, Hulk villains are always a fun thing to talk about because they are either super smart or incredibly powerful, both of which make for a fun read. The character Ravage is one villain that is both of those things wrapped into one, which makes it all the more puzzling that he has completely disappeared. Dr. Jeffrey Crawford was a former mentor of Bruce Banner, who used the Hulk's gamma radiation to cure himself of a debilitating neuromuscular disease, while pretending that he was trying to help Banner cure himself of the Hulk persona. Unfortunately, like a good chunk of others who have subject themselves to gamma, Crawford became a big old green monster who is subject to fits of rage. But unlike a good chunk of other gamma mutates, Jeffrey kept his wits and was both an incredibly strong villain able to rival the Hulk physically, but also cunning and able to outthink the Hulk as well. He had this plan to try and become Ravage full-time instead of only temporarily hulking out. Banner had to team up with General Ross to try and bring him down, resulting in a huge brawl between the two Green Goliaths, but it was actually Major Talbot who used a cryogenic inducer to freeze Ravage, and he was kept in suspended animation at Gamma Base being researched for ways to defeat the Hulk himself, and the last mention of him was way back in 1998. What always boggles me is when a villain has an absolutely huge backstory that ties into the Elder Gods and the greater Marvel godly planes, but then they just never show up. For example, Echidna, or Echidna, however you want to pronounce it. Echidna or Echidna was an Elder Spawn, the granddaughter of the Elder God known as Set, who is a big deal in Marvel Comics. Set was the first Elder God to realize that he could steal the power of his other Elder Gods by consuming them, which kicked off a whole massive war between the Elder Gods, turning most of them into demons. So his granddaughter is not someone to mess with. Echidna is the mother of all monsters. She made Angerboda, Cerberus, Chimera, the Lernean Hydra, the Nemean Lion, and the Sphinx, just to name a few. Despite that though, in the modern day, she has been a part of some just straight up sucky teams. In 2013, she became a part of the second Doom Maidens team under Caroline LeFay, who were eventually able to resurrect Morgana Le Fay. And in 2018, she became a part of Namor the Submariner's Defenders of the Deep when he decided that land dwellers weren't allowed in the ocean, and she stayed part of that Atlantean team until she turned on Namor and challenged him for the Atlantean throne and got defeated by Ghost Rider when the Avengers showed up back in 2021. Now, the villain Dr. Bong was a goofy villain even during the Golden Age. He has a metal ball where his left hand should be, and he uses it to create concussive blasts by striking the appendage against his bell-shaped helmet. We actually have no idea how he came to become Dr. Bong, because his backstory mainly just touches on how he was a bullied kid who found power in writing and language, so then he became a very unethical reporter, and then tried to become a celebrity and joined up as a performer with a rock band where he would play different characters, and one of those performances got out of hand when his hand got cut off by a guillotine. I wish I was making that up. Now, chronologically, he then appeared in Howard the Duck number 15 in May of 1977 as Dr. Bong with random knowledge of biological engineering and sonics. He faced Howard and eventually She-Hulk, and then in 2010's Deadpool Volume 2, the villain was reimagined just a smidge bit more threateningly as Deadpool's former therapist, and having cloned a team of superheroes, giving his clones regeneration abilities. He then joined a group called the Villains Anonymous, who all had run-ins with Spider-Man, and the last time he was seen was in 2014's Amazing Spider-Man Annual Volume 2, Number 1. Now this next one may be one of the more revolting villains out there, and it only gets worse when you learn that Douglas Carmody, the Bogeyman or Boogeyman, was a villain to the Power Pack, a group of kids. Carmody was in charge of the Carmody Research Labs, where Dr. James Power was working to perfect his antimatter power generator. When the Power Pack gained their abilities from the destruction of the generator, Carmody lost his job and essentially blamed the Power Pack for it all. Classic villain backstory. He then went on to hunt the Power Pack, considering them mutants even though they weren't. He stole a battle suit from Project Pegasus, and using this suit to try and wipe out the Power Pack, he ended up coming into battle with Asgard's Warriors 3 and the New Mutants. Now in Power Pack number 40, a demon named Nastir, I think is how you pronounce it, invaded New York City, and he turned several people, including Bogeyman or Boogeyman, into demons. And for Carmody, he basically embraced it completely, permanently staying as a demon while the others returned to normal. He tried to wipe out the Power Pack again with his new abilities, but then he saw himself in a reflection and went tumbling off a building. That was back in 1988. He appeared one more time in 1993's Cage Volume 1, Number 19, facing Luke Cage, where he apparently passed away. But this isn't confirmed, and so he is basically considered missing, which isn't at all a pleasant thought. Now, similar to how the High Evolutionary created the New Men, he also created the Man Beast from a red wolf that he genetically modified. However, unlike the New Men, Man Beast was created using a new isotope which granted him a heightened physicality and enhanced mental capabilities, also granting him a greater level of ambition. He terrorized Counter-Earth, or more accurately, he led a revolt against the High Evolutionary, which, I mean, that isn't really so bad. That guy sucks. But he was eventually stopped by Thor before he could do real damage. He tried this 2 more times actually, being defeated by Wolverine and Kitty Pryde the first time, and then on Counter-Earth, he was stopped by Adam Warlock, who slightly devolved Man-Beast, which is kind of terrifying to think about. He would then return again on Earth as the Hate-Monger, having seemingly re-evolved back into his normal self, but then he was defeated by Spider-Man and he was thought to be actually killed, but nope, he actually tried to stop the High Evolutionary again, infiltrating his Knights of Wundagore in the late 90s. Unfortunately for the Man-Beast, the High Evolutionary and Quicksilver devolved him back into a wolf, but he's returned from that before, so who knows? Next up is the villain known as Belladonna. Belladonna was actually a Spider-Man villain, but it's more accurate to call her a villain to another Spidey villain, Roderick Kingsley, aka Hobgoblin. But before that ever happened, Belladonna was Narda Ravana, a European fashion designer. The problem was that Kingsley was another famous fashion designer, only one that stole from other designers. Kingsley allegedly stole Ravana's designs and marketed them in the United States, stealing her success, and for that, I guess he had to pay. Swearing vengeance, Narda assumed the guise of Belladonna and put together a small group of henchmen. She used toxic gas as her main tool, creating gas that could dissolve Spider-Man's webs, taking people's lives and having her henchmen dress as the Prowler to distract Spider-Man, all for the end goal of wiping out Kingsley from the face of the earth. The most ironic part of this whole situation though, is that Belladonna just didn't have the popularity needed to be a lasting villain, getting arrested in 1980, while Kingsley, he became the Hobgoblin, and he's been causing problems all the way up until 2020 and is bound to come back at some point. Okay, so next up is a group of obscure villains made for the express purpose of facing another obscure group of heroes. Heavy Metal was a team made up of a group of cybernetically enhanced, super intelligent animals with weaponized exoskeletons. Can't get much more comic booky than that. Their team members included Armory, an octopus because arms, get it? Tail Gunner, a vulture, Bloodbath, a shark, Ramrod, a rhino, and they were led by Uproar, a blue-faced gorilla. Now this team was created by Adam Frost of Multicorp as a prototype, privately owned attack force set to oppose the team known as Brute Force, which is also a team of cybernetically enhanced super intelligent animals with weaponized exoskeletons. Also created by Multicorp, but they were created by Dr. Randall Pierce, and these guys were good. Except the problem is both of these teams were really just a part of Weapons Plus, the ones who created Captain America and eventually Wolverine, and they are not exactly the best people around. Heavy Metal was around for 4 issues of the Brute Force comic in 1990, and they have never been seen since. Remember back when I talked about Echidna or Echidna, and we talked about the Defenders of the Deep? Well, this team was basically filled with water-based villains that had nothing better to do, and one of them was a guy called Tiger Shark. So get this, Todd Arliss was a swimmer who took part in the Olympic Games. Cool, he ended up damaging his spinal cord when he rescued a drowning man. Dang. He was so desperate to regain his swimming ability that he then willingly participated in an experiment by the scientist Dr. Lemuel Dorcas. Interesting. The doctor blended Arliss's DNA with that of Namor the Submariner and a tiger shark, because of course he did. This experiment was totally successful, only it completely changed Arliss both physically and mentally. Now he had razor sharp teeth and gills and had become savage and incredibly aggressive. He became a supervillain and named himself Tiger Shark, becoming an adversary for Namor the Submariner. Now, funnily enough though, after years and years of battling against Namor and the superhero community, he joined the Defenders of the Deep, and now he hasn't been seen since 2019 when they attacked an oil drilling platform in Alaska. And last up for today is Bram Velsing. For starters, he has an incredibly strange name that is very obviously a reference to Bram Stoker and his character Van Helsing. So, Bram Velsing, also known as Dread Knight, is better known as an enemy to Tony Stark in the Ultimate Universe. Unfortunately, in the 1610 universe, he just becomes another Iron Man villain that creates another Iron Man-like armor. But in Earth 616, Bram Velsing was actually a Latverian scientist who didn't like Dr. Doom's schemes and was punished by having a mask fused to his face. He became kind of like a villain, but also a servant to Dr. Doom in a way, allying himself with Victoria Frankenstein and the creations of Victor Frankenstein, which would make you think that he was actually a hero, but he was never played that way. He eventually moved on from being just a Dr. Doom villain and has gone on to fight Iron Man on a few occasions, as well as the Black Knight and Spider-Man. He was this really cool looking armored up man with an even cooler mask, wielding a super cool lance, riding a black winged horse. It was dope, but curiously, while he's never actually been sent to the afterlife, his last appearance was serving Dr. Doom in Iron Man Legacy Volume 1 Number 3 back in 2010, and he hasn't been seen since.